Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to Cinema Prescriptions, where we dive deep into a film and prescribe you all that you need to enjoy the film. I am your host, Mr. Dr. Rice, and today we will be going over
Madam Web. Alright, so the synopsis for this film is Cassandra Webb is a New York metropolitan paramedic who begins to demonstrate signs of clairvoyance. Forced to challenge revelations about her former, she needs to safeguard 3 young women from a deadly adversary who wants to destroy them. So from that, you get the superhero origin story of her, like mastering her powers and whatnot. So this is a good synopsis of the film. So the director of this film was S.J. Clarkson. This is her feature film debut, but she has directed some superhero television shows in the past. That includes 2 episodes of Heroes, 2 episodes of Jessica Jones, and also 2 episodes of The Defenders. So she has some experience directing superheroes in the past, which is good to know, but she's pretty much new to filmmaking. So it's always exciting to see a new person, a new director directing a film. The budget for this film was $80 million. For comparison's sake, Deadpool 1 was $85 million to make. I felt like the CGI was questionable throughout the film, especially at the beginning of the film, when they were in the jungle. I feel like there weren't that many interesting locations that they used in the film, but I do feel like they had 2 well-known actresses in the film, in Dakota Johnson and Sydney Sweeney. So I didn't feel like this film really utilizes budget well, seeing that Deadpool 1 cost $58 million and it looked a lot better than this film. I feel like when you got a budget this small, you have to be a little more creative with how you tell your story. So a good comparison film for this one would be Final Destination and any other superhero origin story. The clairvoyance allows our main character, Cassandra, to see the deaths of the ones she wants to protect, and it gives her the opportunity to intervene. This reminds me of the first Final Destination and the premonitions the main character got and his attempts to save his friends from death. The film also follows the same road as pretty much any superhero origin story. You know, you get your characters like backstory, they get their powers, the villain appears, and they have to master their unfamiliar powers and begin to step into the shoes of the superhero that we know them to be today. So those are my comparison films that I picked for this one. What makes this film easy to love? Outside of the superhero stuff, I feel like the film had a pretty decent story. The conflict leaves you wanting to know what will happen next. Ezekiel Sims sees visions of his death, the 3 young ladies killing him in the future. So that's a really good motivation for him to become a villain and want to kill them. That also forces Cassandra, who is beginning to have her powers come to the light. And and I feel like they did a nice job with like linking like her to his past with his history with her mother, and also the 3 girls now have a history with her. So I feel like the story was able to stitch together and weave the characters in an interesting way that made the story that gave all the characters motivation to act. Also, Cassandra's clairvoyance powers were interesting. It was enjoyable to see her work with her powers, and seeing the trailers, I wasn't sure if her powers were clairvoyance or was she like having like a Happy Death Day thing going on where she was stuck in a loop. Obviously, I don't read the Madam Web comics or whatnot, but I know Sony likes to change stories, such as what they did with Venom and what they're doing with Kraven, like taking away the Spider-Man elements from these stories. It was very enjoyable to see her and how she would be able to weave her way through situations, seeing the future. My favorite instance was the diner scene in this film. What could make it hard to love? The beginning and the ending kind of killed the film for me. The film starts with goofy acting and line delivery, and the silly effects of the spider people at the beginning of the film, it kind of took me out of it. Like, the lines felt like they were written for a stage play, and it had me thinking like, I know this movie isn't going to be this good starting from here. But I did begin to enjoy the film, especially when things started to pick up during the train sequence. And I was like, this movie isn't too bad right now. And then like I was interested throughout, but then I got to the end of the film and it felt very rushed, and the ending fight wasn't that interesting between Cassandra and the bad guy. And it just felt like it just wrapped everything up and just threw her in a position to look like the character of Madam Web in the comic books. So it kind of sped to the point where she kind of began to look like the Madam Web in the comic books. And I felt like the character growth was not well portrayed in the film. Like, you don't get those bonding scenes that you should have between Cassandra and Julia and Aya and Maddie. So we don't get to see the girls growing as characters they follow. We just kind of get to the point where they will follow Cassandra's orders versus becoming characters that are interesting in themselves, which isn't very interesting in my opinion. Also, the villain is very passive. Although I felt like the motivation was strong with him, and although I felt that his motivations were strong, I felt that his actions were weak. Like, he was waiting around for his assistant throughout the film before he would act, and he wasn't a very aggressively motivated. He wasn't the type of villain that took action on his own. He had to wait for other people to do things, and it kind of felt like it was relying more on the story to push him forward versus him acting. And I don't feel, and it has instances of where like the villain should attack the person, but he's taking his time and not killing them. I mean, you are afraid that these people are going to kill you in the future. Why would you just take your time when you're trying to kill somebody? So that kind of took me out of the film also. My prescription for this film is that if you want to enjoy it, enjoy the overall story of the film. Cassandra's clairvoyance powers are interesting, and what makes it hard to love, the beginning and the end kind of kill the film for me. The character growth of the characters isn't very interesting or very well played, and the villain's kind of passive throughout the film. So that's my prescription for you to enjoy this one. See you next time.